Welcome to Weird Games and Weirder People, a podcast about role-playing games and the weird, wonderful people behind them. Hello weirdos, this is Diogo Nogueira and today we have a very special guest. I'm talking about Paweł Kicman. I hope I'm not butchering his name. He's the creator of Corp Borg, Whispers of the Woods, and other games. But before we get to it, I would like to remind you to subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you like the show or if you want to tell us what you think about the show, leave us a review at whatever you listen to your podcast. And check our show notes if you'd like to support the show in other ways. And getting back to our main reason we are here, let's talk about Paweł Kicman. I have to say to you, I had some connection problems while we were recording this episode, so there will be like a couple of breaks that we might repeat ourselves slightly in some ways, but we said different things, so I thought it was important to, keep some of these conversations we had. And we talked about many great things. We talked about his work now as a game designer and how he approaches his process and how he came up with his games. They are very personal, and talked about his history. We talked about the works he did before he worked as a game designer and how those relate to his work, to his games, to his creations. We talked about how it was a problem that he turned into kind of an opportunity to seek this interest, and now he's excited to be working on games, how he's very specific about how he believes human behavior is shaped and how this affects him in ways, both in the way he sees people and how he behaves in spirituality too. We talked about artists that inspires him and where he draws inspiration from, such as Alan Moore, how he sees him as someone that gets this simple scientific idea and then builds from there and makes something great. We talked about how a game designer has the GM as a collaborator. We talked about his passions for comics, movies, his weird experiences, and many great ideas and wisdom were traded here. So I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the episode and listen to it. So let's get weird with Paweł Kicman. Welcome, Paweł. Sorry, I butchered your name again. Welcome, Paweł Kicman. We just had a conversation about names and how sometimes it's hard when I go to the United States. I always kind of give a fake name. But welcome, Paweł Kicman. Welcome to Weird Games and Weirder People. It's nice to have you here. I'm excited to talk about Corp Borg and your experience as a creator. And how are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm very good. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. And yeah, super excited. I've listened to your podcast for some time now. And yeah, even with the names, I think you had so many guests from all around the world so far. So I guess you'll have to pronounce so many weird names. So
Yeah.
it should be like weird names and weird people and weirder games.
Yeah, that's my hope. It's a connection we all have. Like we all butcher each other's names because we are all over the world, and I hope to get more people from more varying places and hear about the experience of people and creators from all around the world if I can. So if you're a creator that you think your upbringing, your way you create is interesting, hit me up and we can talk to presenting how it is to be a creator in the RPG space wherever you're from. So yeah, I think that's great, and we can talk about how we all have our names mispronounced everywhere. So
Sure.
Pavel, but for readers who are at home and don't really maybe don't know who you are and want to know more about you and what you do, and they like to hear from your own words and then instead of like reading a bio. So who is Pavel and what is that you do? And if you can you share a small word detail about yourself? It can be a habit, a way of you do things, or wear or use something.
Sure. Okay. So, well, the question about something weird, you should ask my wife. She would probably give like 100 examples, and I will struggle to give you
Yeah.
one. But yeah, my name is Paweł Kicman. I'm from Poland, and yeah, I'm tabletop RPG writer and designer and author. Like I do basically everything except art. Although I do sometimes play with it a little bit. Um, and my background, well, I have so many different backgrounds, but kind of the one that should probably be the most interesting to you people is that I have background in creative writing, mainly comics, but also journalism, especially video games and comic books. And
Oh, I mean, everything interesting. I think every like your history, your story, it's
sure.
part of the way you create. I think, right?
Sure, so of course, and
So,
I think like the reason I'm here today and the reason I kind of I'm doing tabletop RPGs is probably like there are so many different decisions we make during our life that kind of leads us to where we are. But I think the kind of the most significant event happened last year. It was around March time when I was left without a job, and I've worked 7 years at different corporations in recruitment. That was my day job, and obviously, so many people do have a day job to kind of support their creative work, and that was kind of similar for myself. But yeah, I was left without a job, and initially I was like, okay, that's not a big issue. I was actually quite unhappy with the job I had. So I was thinking about changing it either way. So I thought, yeah, okay, I will have like a month or two to look for something else. So yeah, so I did, but it turned out it was super difficult to find anything. It was very bad time. It was really kind of difficult to find something that would suit my quite specific skill set, because I've done many different things, but I kind of ended up as an analyst in recruitment, which is not kind of super common. And then I was offered a role, which was in a decent company, an actual company that I started my professional career with. And it was great. I was like, okay, I have an offer, so everything's cool. But then kind of weeks went by, and at some point I just received a call from the hiring manager, and kind of she was like, listen, I'm so sorry, but the company is actually going through a recruitment freeze, so we are not hiring anyone. I don't know when it'll be lifted. It could be a month, 3 months, but sorry, we just cannot hire you now. And I guess like my first reaction was a bit of kind of sadness. I was a bit angry maybe, but I was also quite excited because I thought, okay, this is my chance. Like I was left without any, like with nothing. So I went to my wife and I said, listen, how about this? I want to make tabletop RPGs full time from now on. I need 2 months to kick things off, to start. I will do a Kickstarter campaign. If it's successful, I'll just go with from there. And she was like, "Okay, it's difficult, but okay. I know that it's your dream. I know that you kind of suffocated for 7 years doing corporate work, and I know kind of it's your path." So she said, "Yes, we have some savings." She was at the time doing quite well financially as well. So yeah, I took that chance and I went all in. And yeah, and kind of I started the Kickstarter for Corp Borg, which, funnily enough, it's a game about evil corporations. And it wasn't a coincidence. Like I knew I wanted to make this game for like 2 years, so I had early drafts for like 2 years. But it was so fitting that I will start with this game to kick things off after 7 years with spent with corporations. So I did, and the campaign was a success. Definitely much more than I initially thought. And kind of the early reactions, because I've already sent digital versions. The kind of the book is now with the printer, so the physical should be released soon. But people are liking it, so I'm so happy. But yeah, this is how I started doing this full time, which kind of seemed, if you would ask me like a year ago, like, do you think you could do, I don't know, tabletop RPGs full time? I'm like, no, no, just it's crazy. I've just it's impossible to do it. But it's been, well, over 6 months now. Like it's probably 8 months since I started, and yeah, I'm still I'm still here, still kicking, alive and kicking, and kind of trying to do new things, trying to introduce something, something exciting for people, and yeah, hopefully I'll be here next year and in 5 years and 10 and so on. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Amazing. That's a great origin story and really inspiring. Uh, but you did forget like a word detail. Can't you think of anything
uh,
like any you know?
okay. Oh, this is a tough one. I guess I guess maybe one weird thing, because I already said that I have so many different backgrounds. So that might be a weird detail, that I've done so many different, very different things in my life. I played professional basketball when I was a teenager.
Wow.
I was a qualified first aider for 5 years with the Red Cross group. So I have kind of quite extensive training in first aid and kind of different scenarios. I was about to do PhD, so I have a scientific background in pain, placebo, behavioral science,
Wow.
and yeah, so you see, as a lot of different things. So yeah, I said that I worked with corporations for 7 years in recruitment. Yeah, I have background in journalism, creative writing, game design. So a lot of different things. I guess this might be weird for some people, because I know that some people do a lot of different stuff. But I've actually done a lot of very different stuff for years, and it just were kind of, when time went by, I was, like, I couldn't do everything at once. So obviously I had to settle with only a few. But yeah, I've done very different things in my life.
Well, I think that's fascinating, and I think that's also kind of a good thing for artists and game designers more specifically, because we can create games inspired by all of those experiences we had, right? I think we can learn from all of them, and that is something I wanted to ask you. Do you see any influence or anything that you learned from this experience that apparently differs so much from being an artist, a creator, a game designer? Do you see any of your scientific studies, your time as a first responder? Do you see anything that you learned through that you apply in the way you make art and you make your games?
Oh, very much so. I think a kind of every bit of experience will influence how we do things. And even though a lot of stuff that I've done wasn't creative, I think, making a, and that's kind of what kind of brought me to tabletop game design, um, because it's a complex product. It's not only a creative product, it's also something that you kind of actually have to design. You have to be analytical about it. Just like being an indie developer kind of means that you have to do, you have kind of the whole marketing and business side to worry about, and all of that. So I think there's so many influences, but I guess the biggest one was very much creative, because since I was, 6, 7, all I wanted to do was to kind of tell stories uh, in different shape or form, and I would go on for an hour, 2 hours to my friend, just telling a story, just made up, improvised story, and they would be kind of mad about it, like, oh my god, just stop talking. And kind of it stuck with me, and the kind of element of designing things was also very close to me, because basically since I was 4, I was so much into video games, and I was super analytical about it. So kind of that led me into video game journalism as well. But I always wanted to see kind of the other side. I was always interested, how does it work? So yeah, from one side I wanted to tell stories and kind of build worlds, but from the other side I wanted to kind of design an experience, design kind of mechanisms around something. So putting both together kind of equals making tabletop RPGs. I think it's kind of probably uh, the best possible way to kind of to do both, because in video game, for example, design, like you is a little bit different, because you kind of create something that's going to be used in one way or in multiple ways, but it will be always kind of finite number of ways you can interact with it. But it's something so appealing about role-playing games, that I'm creating tools for people to create endless worlds, endless opportunities, and that's
Yeah.
super exciting. And that's kind of what I really really love about it. And that's why I was super passionate about kind of doing this full time, because I wanted to be able to commit to it so much to be sure that I'm making the best possible products, and that I'm making the best possible tools for people kind of to use them to create their own stories. And I think I'm kind of probably going very much off the trail, but
But it's
uh,
you make very good points today. I also want to talk about
thank
some
you.
of this. Yeah,
Sure. So kind of the one last thing, and we can go back on track, is that I think it takes mm, like, I don't know, writing a book or writing a comic, just creating a story that you want to tell from start to finish. You have to have like some ego, because you want to have control over this story. Like, you want to make it yours. But making tabletop RPGs, you have to let go of that ego, because you don't know what people will make of your game, how they will use it. So you have to kind of
yeah,
sell a little bit of, kind of, you have to give away control. And uh, and I know that kind of myself from few years ago, it would be very difficult to do, but now it's all I want to do. I want to give away control, because I know that kind of customers, like players, they're much more, and kind of game masters, they're much more important than I am. And yeah, and that's why, kind of, that's the whole appeal of making tabletop games.
yeah, absolutely. And what you talked about, how it's something for the players to create, for the people that are playing, create their own stories, and to have a almost infinite gameplay out of a product, right? And we always compare role playing games because of the way through play we create stories with them to media that tells stories like movies, comics, and literature. But in many ways, I think they're much more similar to toys than this, because we use toys to play and create stories with toys. Like we play with action figures, you know. As we play with toys, we're telling stories, and they do not come with the toy. You make their own based on what you're playing, and I think it's a very healthy way, at least for the game designer, to see games and their even their adventures as toys, as something that gives material for the players that is rich. There is background, there is context, but they create their own stories. They create their own goals in some ways, right? And
Yeah,
and
absolutely. And you know what? And I think you said it's amazing, just kind of comparing it to toys, because it kind of touches that kind of child element in each of us. Because when I was a kid, I loved
yeah,
playing Legos, for example, and I loved kind of playing Legos in a way that would kind of add up to a story. Like, I would watch not even the whole Lord of the Rings movie, but kind of the commercial, and only out of the commercial I could play for months, kind of creating my own versions of what I've seen in a commercial. And I think when you're an adult, you probably kind of shift a little bit more into kind of being more passive, that you kind of get the story and kind of it and that's it. Like you've listened, you've read, you've seen a story, and you're kind of left with some maybe emotions or thoughts. But when you're a child, like you want to live it, like you want to continue the story. And yeah, and this is exactly what you
Yeah.
can do with tabletop RPGs. And I think this is like you just hit the nail on the head. It's that kind of like treating this as a toy that kind of touches that child element. Yeah, that's I think that's very
Yeah.
fitting.
And as you mentioned, Lego, for me, it's even better analogy because like you can buy a set of Lego Lord of the Rings and you put it just like the box and it's perfect because you can play the One Ring just like that, but you can also take that apart, and with the same pieces create something your own, and it can be inspired by Lord of the Rings. Then like you can still make it like in a fantasy setting, but you can completely change that, and then I think that's a very helpful way to make RPGs, to give them as a tool, and sometimes as a way for them to learn about game design. They pick your stuff apart and then make this your own. It's very 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 helpful way, I think, with deal with game design, and then gives a lot of reusability for the product. So I think its
Yeah,
value increases even more, right?
true.
Yeah. Pavel, what would you say? We always ask this here because it's weird games and weirder people, and we have this like weird is the new wonderful vibe. But I'd like to ask you, for you, what is weird for you? How would you define it, and how do you seek it in your life and in your work?
I think weird is something um, from one side unexpected, but also something that it's kind of unsettling. Something that you see have some normal elements, but there is something wrong with it. Kind of weird is seeing something that you expect to be as you think it should be, but seeing that kind of an element that doesn't fit, and kind of it makes you uneasy maybe. So I think I think that's weird, and I think that's kind of the very kind of using that definition. And obviously, it doesn't have to be right, but it's mine, so I can
Yeah,
do
it's
whatever I want with
personal.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I think that kind of element of being a little bit on edge and being kind of uncertain, that makes weird fun, because if you want to, you can then go and kind of explore what's the element that makes you uneasy, what doesn't really fit in this picture, like what's wrong, what's different. And by pursuing that kind of question, you can find some amazing answers. And that's very much something I want to introduce with my games. For example, the one I currently have on a Kickstarter, Whispers of the Woods. It's a small, very kind of minimalistic game, but I believe it to be weird because what I want from this game, what I want to offer people is kind of are tools that they can use to build weird stories that are sometimes familiar in a way, but all the plot hooks, all the random tables, all kind of the whole game design, I want to make them a little bit uncomfortable so they can pursue and kind of find out why they're uncomfortable with something in this game, in this story they're playing or unraveling. Um, and I think it's always good idea. It's always a good idea to follow that path into weirdness and kind of discover what weird is for us. Um, and yeah, very much so. I would love uh, every game to have weird element, because sure, weird is not for everyone, and we don't all have to follow the weird. but a little bit of weirdness here and there, something that kind of keeps us on the edge, something that makes us ask questions. I think it's a great way to push us to do something more, to look for something more, especially in games. If there is something strange, something that we're not really used to, it's fun, right? Because we can be explorers, we can see what's wrong. And that's something that I really love, both as a consumer and as a creator. So hopefully that will come across from my products.
Yeah, for sure. I think you know it has really specific themes that you're like seeking in your games, and it tells a lot about individuality, and that's something that I would ask. Like, do you think I think the weird is very individual, and I think it has a little bit to do with what fascinates that person, what interests them, and at the same time, it is uncomfortable, but it's kind of attracts at least us, at least, and I think artists in particular are attracted to the uncomfortable, what is strange, what makes them, question the pattern and the reality. And would you say the word it's something that attracts you and inspires you, and you seek that in
Yes,
some way?
yeah, of course. But I'm always a little bit worried about the kind of pursuing the weird, because I think the more we know, the more we learn, the less weird the world becomes. Because if like, I don't know, even from kind of historical perspective, I guess storm or kind of atmospheric events, that was weird for people a few thousand years ago. So they made up, you know mythological gods to explain this. That was weird for them, but now we know, right? Now we know why the storm is coming and why the rain is falling down and all that. And personally, as individuals, we learn, with each day a lot more about the world and about ourselves, and kind of that takes that weirdness a little bit. So as a
Yeah,
creator, it's very kind of difficult also for me to always come up with something weird that would also excites me, because I always want to do things as I would see them, uh, like, meaning I want to make something weird that's also weird for me. I just don't want to assume that, okay, I'm gonna write a piece of lore that I think will be weird, but for me is such, mundane and just normal. I also want to kind of surprise myself to a degree. But yeah, it's becoming more and more difficult, I guess, the more we do.
yeah,
But for some reason, it's always there, and I think it's never ending story. Like, there will always be
yeah.
something weird in our lives, especially if you're a creative person. Like, you will always have that one thought that's different, and it will always be there, and I hope it will be for me, because yeah, I definitely much seek weird and weirdness, and something that kind of very very much drives me to create stuff. So fingers crossed, it'll stay that way, and it's not like in a few years, in a few decades, I won't become kind of miserable old man who's like, yeah, I've seen everything, like, you cannot surprise me, I'm not gonna make games because it's all
Yeah, I think that's
boring.
impossible. I
Yeah,
think that's
I hope so.
impossible. It is scientifically impossible. Like the human culture produces way more knowledge every year than it's possible to consume. I mean, it's like I actually think the more you know that you don't know, because you get deeper and things start getting more and more complicated and more mysterious. I think it's there's that phrase that like the bigger the island of knowledge, the bigger the shores of the unknown too, because the ocean is the unknown. You have more contact with stuff that you don't know, uh,
No, that's that's
and
that's
I don't know.
beautiful, and that's really smart. Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, because I mean, I for me, uh, Stephen Hawking, how the black holes and time and space and relativity was for me really really weird, and didn't know anything. And I read one of Stephen Hawking's books that was like an introduction, and like learned more things that I didn't know, but I have even more questions now about how does that all connect, and you know,
Yeah.
it's really really strange. I don't know. If I think that if that's something that inspires you and makes you want to ask questions, I think if you look more into it, you will have more questions, and it can be maybe a little bit deeper, because we never really know, right? And like our perception of reality is superficial, and like even though like we know there's no ghosts and everything, the stories still fascinate us quite a bit, right? Like we nobody can prove anything, and I'm quite sure there are no ghosts. But I'm still fascinated about the stories and want to explore them, and even though they are not real, I'm very still interested in how are these people perceiving and having those experiences, because the experiences are real, right? Ghosts might not be real, but the experiences are, right?
Yeah, I also know that there are no such things as ghosts, but sometimes when I'm alone at home and I know it's like 2 a.m. and just woke up and I really need to go to the toilet, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be careful. So I guess that's that. You've said it that there are always more questions, and even though we might know some things, it's not that we know everything and we can rationalize everything, especially because
Mm.
kind of we don't always want to. And honestly, I mentioned that I have some background in behavioral science, and I'm very radical about it from kind of scientific perspective.
Oh
So
yeah.
so for me, kind of human
In which
behavior
ways
is
do you mean that? Like radical
uh,
in which ways?
radical in kind of the perception of how human behavior is shaped, and kind of how we
Hmm.
learn things and why we behave at all in way we do. Um, but and I thought initially that kind of this kind of knowledge will make me less kind of, I don't know, emotional about some of the stuff, like I'll be so analytical, like, oh, okay, I know why this person in a movie behaved this way because it's so obvious. But no, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't matter what I know about kind of human behavior and how people learn. It doesn't mean that I cannot enjoy things that kind of want me to think maybe in a different way, things that maybe are not kind of super scientifically based, and then kind of they will do something else, and that's okay, because kind of culture and art, it doesn't have to be it shouldn't be radical, it shouldn't be strict, it shouldn't kind of boil down
Yeah.
to kind of the kind of smaller elements. It should be something more, and I'm happy that it kind of stays this way for me. And I think it also can be true for, I don't know, you mentioned Stephen Hawking, so I can only imagine that the guy, I don't know him, I don't know his story, but I can only imagine that he could have, I don't know, enjoyed Star Wars. Right, even though it's kind of
Yeah.
pure
Of
fantasy.
course.
Why
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
right? It's not about
Yeah.
kind of getting everything reduced to kind of
The
smallest elements
rational,
or size,
yeah.
yeah, rational.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's a fun way to start, right? Like we can start from the rational and build from there,
Yeah.
and to see, where are we going to end. I think this is what my absolute favorite creator of all time, and probably one of the best storytellers of all time, Alan Moore. That I think that was a part of his process. There are so many his kind of, especially science fiction stories, kind of early science fiction comics, filled with things that kind of, I think, kind of started as a kind of scientific idea, but he builds such great stories around them. So it's not about, I don't know, like a scientific experiment or something. That's kind of, I don't know, kind of not a way to explain why this happens on such planet or whatever. It's about using that to tell a story about,
Yeah,
people struggling, etc. So yeah.
yeah. You mentioned Alan Moore as your favorite creator of all time, and I always ask, creators that come here if they have, an artist or a creator, no matter from whatever media they come from, that inspires and serve as kind of a role model or a inspiration on how to create or how to portray themselves in this space. Uh, would you say Alan Moore is like an inspiration to you, or do you have other creators that inspires you in the way you approach your work?
Oh, I do. I definitely would say Alan Moore is probably the main one. Because I think he's a role model, but also kind of something that's probably not achievable for myself and probably for so many other creators to kind of to create stories like he create his stories, but kind of aspiring to that, like learning from what he's done kind of right. It's a great learning opportunity. But I think
Yeah.
one of the artists that has that kind of a lot of influence over me was Zdzisław Beksiński, a Polish painter, a kind of surreal
Ah,
painter. He's quite famous. I think if you would see his painting, you would know. Oh, okay. You would be like, aha, I've probably seen it. Um,
can
because
you send me the name afterwards? Like
yeah,
how
sure,
to spell that? And sure, yeah, we
yeah,
can put in show notes. Okay.
sure. Um, so and he was a painter, and I cannot draw a straight line. So I definitely
Hmm.
I'm not, and I will never be a visual artist. Uh, but something in his process kind of spoke to me, and I think it's so important for me and for kind of how I think about art in general. That so many people has asked him, like, what are your inspirations? What does this painting mean? And it was like, it doesn't mean anything. It's just, I had a dream or I had a thought, and I just kind of, drew it. I just painted it, and that's it. That's something I've seen, and I just painted it, and that's it. And there's no moral to it. There's no story to it. There's no explanation. And of course, probably there are hundreds of things that inspired him, but it's kind of unconscious. He might not even know it, like knew it. Um, but that's it. We can create just stuff that we don't have to understand, and it doesn't really have to mean anything for it to mean something for other people. And I think
Yeah.
it's probably a little
Yeah,
bit
and it can mean something for you, and it can mean something completely different to other
different,
people as
yeah.
well. Yeah.
And I think this comes in handy when making tabletop games, because again, it's not something that you build to be your own. It's not something that is going to work exactly as you've planned. So, kind of letting go and knowing that each person will have a different, not only opinion, but different experience and different kind of way of interacting with your game. That's kind of a huge relief, because you can focus on things that probably matter more than it would if you would write, I don't know, a book or a comics, where you have to kind of do everything. You have to have the whole story. And making tabletop RPGs, you don't, because like I personally enjoy tabletop RPGs that are kind of more kind of old school Renaissance kind of vibes, so all the Morgborgs and stuff like that, because they're they don't give you a lot. They don't tell you a lot about the world, about kind of how, the way you have to play. They just throw a bunch of kind of inspiration towards you and say, yeah, let's just do whatever you want with it. And I know there are some people who think it's kind of cheap or it's lazy, that it's so easy to make games like that. You just put a bunch of pictures and you just write a bunch of lore and you just, you know, attach some rule set and you're done. But it's not. Like, you need to know what you want to convey. I think in some parts it's much easier to sit down and write a kind of D&D lore piece or adventure where you need to have all the elements to fit into the kind of crunchy system, than it is to create something that gives so many opportunities, but it's still something that it's kind of feels kind of natural and tactile, and it has its kind of own essence. So yeah, I loved also the kind of minimalistic games with very few words of lore and explanations, and I don't believe them to be lazy or cheap. I believe them to be like, especially stuff like, I don't know, yeah, I've mentioned Morgborg. It's got its own essence and its own style, and it lets you do things you want to do with it, and that's great. And obviously, I don't have anything against more kind of crunchy games. So, I'm more than happy that people enjoy D&D. I don't. It's just not the kind of the game that I would like to play or I would like to GM, or
Yeah.
although I did. Because I like, personally, I want more freedom, and I want more freedom for my players, or as a player I want more freedom. uh, but obviously, I understand that sometimes having a game like D&D or whatever kind of gives you that kind of peace of mind and comfort, and gives you so many tools to kind of to make more of a kind of constructed story, right? It's a different thing. So it's kind of different tabletop
It's
experience, I think, and it's
yeah,
okay.
it's a different style of gaming. I
Yeah,
like you mentioned one being harder than the other. I think doing well either one is hard. Like
yeah,
you can either you can make it easy for both, and it would be poorly made one, but doing something well made, like you as you mentioned, Morkborg. People say, oh, it's lazy, it's small text and image, but it's so well crafted. First of all, people complain about the layouts and stuff. That thing is so legible and so clear with the amounts of graphism and work, and that graphism tells so much about the setting. It's part of the narrative. It's not getting in the way of experiencing the work. It's actually how you fully experience the work. I know some people have disabilities that sometimes it's hard for them to experience that work in a full way. They have other ways, like art free, uh, but that is part of the work of the creation. It's not only the text, the imagery, the way how it's displayed on the page, the chaos in the it's all part of how they present Mark Borg. That is Mark Borg. It's not only the text. Um,
exactly. And
yeah,
as you said, it's equally difficult, although it's probably a
it's very
different kind
hard
of skill
to make
set,
that.
of
Yeah,
course. And I know that with Corp Borg, I would love it to be at least 50% as good as Morgborg. But obviously, they kind of, Johan and Pele, they gave us kind of
yeah,
a,
and you can
a
study their work. You can learn from
yeah,
them. Like I learned a
exactly,
lot through that. I'm not,
exactly. And
as you said, I'm not 50% of what Johan can do, but yeah, I've learned from that. And that's very valuable.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's amazing. And I think, making kind of games or adventures based on something that already exists is a great way to learn. And
Yes.
and even if you make adventures for D&D, you will learn a lot
Yeah.
about the design and layouts and everything. So it doesn't really matter what you do, but
Yeah.
you have a kind of a base product and you try to do it in your own way. Sometimes maybe it's even better than kind of creating something from scratch, because you can have that kind of safety net, but also
Yeah,
you can kind of
that's how you
take it
learn. Yeah,
apart. Yeah, you can like have a, I don't know, like a Lego
yeah,
set. You take it apart and you build
exactly. Yeah,
something on your own, and you don't have to make those pieces by
yeah,
yourself. Like, you have them, but you can kind of deconstruct them, and that's very kind of a very good lesson for myself. I think it was great to
yeah,
start with kind of Morgborg hack,
yeah,
and obviously I also want to kind of do things for Morgborg. I love the system, but there are so many other things that kind of excites me that I probably will do
yeah.
different stuff as well.
It's
um
hard to concentrate in one thing, right? As you get excited and wants to do a lot of stuff.
oh yeah, it
But
is like, oh, sorry, go
go
on.
ahead, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say that even last week I had a pile of things to do. I had like two articles, and I had to work with the printer on Corp Borg, and I had to write "Kill Your Necromancer," and the campaign started for Whispers and all of that. And I was like, okay, so much to do, so much to do. Oh, I have an idea for a solo role playing game. I kind of open up kind of Google Docs and I roll like a page. Huh, okay, I need to make this game. And I'm like, oh, but I have like five other things that's probably more important than this. I just can't stop. I need to make this game now. And it is sometimes difficult. And I think it's
Yeah,
okay. I think it's okay to get distracted and kind of follow that creative flow, because honestly, I
yeah.
one thing that
It's a
I found
balance.
that,
It's okay, but it can get out of
yeah,
control, right?
but I
Yeah.
I kind of I personally I need to follow those kind of creatives highs, because of kind of my health, mainly depression, over the last years. I've
Oh,
lost a lot of what I had in terms of kind of creative thoughts, and like, honestly, like a few years ago, I would be sitting down staring at a wall and I would have 100 ideas, and I would see images, I would kind of hear sounds, and I would think about great stories that I can tell. And now it's super difficult for me to come up with anything. Like, there's no, like, I don't
oh,
have all those thoughts that kind of comes naturally. I really need to make an effort to kind of visualize something. So it's been difficult, because when your brain kind of shoots different stuff at you, and it's all great, you have so many ideas, and then coming to a stage where you have to fight for those ideas, it's very difficult. But I guess it is what it is. I need to take what I have and make the best I
yeah,
can with it. um so yeah, I guess that's that's that. But it also kind of helped me to maybe focus more, because now when I have to make that effort, it's a different experience, and kind of learning opportunity, how to concentrate, how to kind of maybe even come up with some of the stuff that maybe would come naturally a few years ago, but it's not anymore. I'm not 25 anymore, so I have to make do what I can best now. Yeah, just trying to do that.
mm. Do you have any methods to get into that creative space? I always ask creators who come here about maybe any creative ritual they perform before they start writing or sitting down to do their creative work. Do you have anything that you use to help you get into that space?
So, vacuuming, shower, and doing the dishes. uh, it still works. It
Yeah,
always worked for me very well, especially vacuuming. I don't know
yeah.
why. But I could make, like, I don't know, 10 songs, even though I suck at music. I just, I'm probably the worst person to create any kind of music in the world. But kind of vacuuming, I would come up with kind of ideas that would put jazz musicians to shame. So
Why
that
is that?
works.
Why?
I don't
How
know.
how
I
how
don't.
bad is the music? Why do you say that?
Oh, because I don't hear music very well. and like ask me what kind of melody is, what tempo is. Like, I don't know. So I can't sing, I can't play any instrument, so I'm pretty bad at it. Uh, but
Mhm.
I still can enjoy music, and I
Yeah,
still
of
can
course.
kind of
Yeah.
sing in my head while vacuuming or just doing anything else. But yeah, all this kind of mundane stuff where I'm kind of automatic with it, it kind of probably helps me to create that space. Like, my body is occupied, but my mind can wander and
Yeah.
maybe get a few ideas. But sometimes I would just go hunt for inspiration. I would just go check others people work. I would, I don't know, just read a book or just even browse through my comics I have on a shelf, or I would listen to a song and just, maybe that would do something. In 90% of cases, it doesn't really work, but I'm happy with the 10%. And sometimes it's basically what we started our conversation with, just doing like kind of getting something out of your own experience. So the solo game I told you about, it's called The Pilgrimage, and it's about you being a kind of a medic, not a doctor, not a kind of qualified doctor, but kind of someone who does first aid to the pilgrims who comes to see kind of two entangled gods on the sky. Um, and 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 you're there, kind of, you have a small tent and a few resources, and the people have plenty of needs, but they are not there to get, I don't know, to get themselves fixed. It's more about they want someone to talk to. They have kind of small injuries maybe, but it's more about kind of conversation and meditation. And I thought it would be a great premise for a game, because this is kind of quite like my experience when I was the first aider with the Red Cross. We had so many different events, like the pilgrimages uh, to different places, where kind of that happened. Like, people came into our tent with kind of small injuries, something that they didn't really need to fix, but they wanted to sit down, they wanted to have a moment for themselves to, to talk about stuff, etc. So I think, definitely, kind of having our kind of very different experience, each of us, is a great influence. Probably it's just kind of the first and the most important influence on our creative process that we probably should consider first, before we try to, I don't know, go and take someone else's ideas.
Yeah. Uh, I was going to ask you about exactly about inspirations and ideas. Like you talked about whispering woods, and I would ask you, what would you be the main, source of inspirations you had for this game that is kickstarting now?
So, I've actually made an alpha version of this game. It was like two pamphlets, trifold pamphlets that I made, I think, 2 years ago. And they were play tested, and I was quite happy with them, and I wanted to print them, but something just struck me there, and I was like, no, I need to wait with this. I need to have more time. I need to build this into a kind of a book. And the idea, I think, came from, um, first of all, I've seen the CBR plus Bay NK, the kind of pamphlet game, cyberpunk
Oh
pamphlet
yeah.
game. So that was an inspiration for the format. And then I think I've seen the movie The Witch by Robert Eggers, and I was like, whoa! Like, the story it tells, like the whole thing. I just don't want to spoil the movie, so I'm not going to go into the details. I know how it subverted my expectations and how it kind of presented a kind of a figure of witch and kind of a legend about a witch into something that's not so. so mundane, not something that we all know very well, and that have something to that we can actually relate to even modern day perception of women. And that was something like I thought, yeah, this is great. Like, how would it work in a tabletop game? Like, how we could make something that will will get players to live through events that will let them like kind of push them to question uh, kind of what they know, their kind of morality maybe. So that was the main plot hook for Whispers of the Woods. Kind of the alpha version from 2 years ago was, what if we go to hunt a witch, but it turns out it's not a witch, it was a healer from the village, but just people didn't understand her. So again, it's probably very stereotypical kind of perception of a witch, that yeah, she's not a witch, but she's just a regular person, but she was casted out. But if we make it into the kind of tabletop role-playing game narrative, uh, I think it can be very powerful, because we can play with it, because we can react to players' expectations. So if kind of the gamekeeper, because it's called gamekeeper in Whispers, the kind of the GM, if the plot hook is, okay, you have to go into the woods because a witch stole someone's child or whatever, and then they will have different ideas. They will be like, maybe they will be focused on that, and they'll be like, yeah, let's kill the witch and kind of get the kid back. So then maybe play a card that, no, she didn't steal, she kind of rescued the child because the child was abused by, I don't know, the elder of the village. But if they follow that path, if they're like, oh no, there's something wrong, we are sure that she's not evil, like, you can make her evil, you can make her an actual witch. So it's this kind of maybe power over expectations that can make that can work only in tabletop role-playing games, because you as a GM or even as a player, you can react to
Yeah.
what's happening, and kind of you can build the world, you can build the story, you control the narrative. Not someone, not a kind of a script writer that wrote the whole story, not
Yeah.
the director who kind of shot it, not the kind of game designer who made a video game
Yeah.
as it is.
You're not doing all the
And
work
that was
by yourself, right? You have someone helping you,
yes,
in a way.
exactly, exactly. And that kind of, that was the whole idea. And I think that was probably kind of the milestone for me. That was something that told me, okay, listen, this is something you could do, this is something you could work on, and this may be something. And as I said, it was 2 years ago, so like a year and a half before I decided to go full time with it, before I just made some one pagers and some kind of adventures and enemies for Morgborg and Cyborg. uh, but then I kind of knew that this might be something I could get into, and this might be something that I can use all my experience and skill set, kind of understanding of game design and experience in writing. I can use all of that to make something cool, hopefully. And so that was kind of that trigger event, I guess, that year and a half later pushed me to pursue this.
Yeah, I see. Have you ever heard about, the premise of your game reminds me of one adventure by Luca Rajek from, Ultraviolet Grasslands, called Witch Burner. And it kind of has this vibe of, it's a village, and everybody is accusing each other, like, to be a witch, and everybody has all these details and all these things happening, and they all kind of weird, but they all like mundane. But the players don't know this, and the adventure doesn't have any real witch, but it can end with the characters accusing someone, and then you can decide that someone is a witch or anything. But it can be exactly as you're saying, like, no one is a witch. It's just, people uh, judging each other. In a way, it is about this. It is a story about how us misjudge each other. like your game in some way, right?
Yeah. So I haven't heard about this adventure, but I know UVG is a great game. It was also part of an inspiration because kind of the whole kind of journey theme in this game is also kind of influential for Whispers to a certain degree. There's also a kind of game about a journey
Mm.
into the woods and things you will kind of experience as you go. And kind of UVG also is a lot about experience, interaction, and kind of talking to people and
Yeah,
kind of seeing weird stuff and kind of having your expectations subverted to a degree, and not just going through a dungeon and fighting,
yeah,
which is also super fun, but it's another kind of game. So so definitely that was an inspiration, but haven't seen the adventure now.
yeah. It has a similar vibe. It's very contemplative. You don't actually fight a witch, but it's very heavy on role play on and doesn't have a solution. It's very open ended. It's like a toy. How do you want to play this? Do you want to really have a witch? Do you want to have lean more heavily on this, misjudging people, or do you want to see how bad this plays out with people accusing each other? It's an excellent adventure that doesn't have, an ending. It's open ended.
Yeah.
It's great, and it kind of reminded me of your game, even though uh, your game is more explicit about showing. It's a different way to do this thing. I'm not saying it's like the same thing. It's similar themes, and as you said, uh, the author kind of inspires you, so it has this kind of vibe about discovery and subverting expectations, and that's what it is weird all about, right?
Yeah. And talking about kind of similar things, at one point I've learned about the game Trophy, which was nominated to Annie. It's
Yeah,
an amazing game, but I had no previous knowledge about this when I started making Whispers. Like, oh no, someone made the kind of the same game. And also, I bought it, I've read it, and oof, no,
it's
it's
different.
not the
It's gonna
same.
always
It's not
be
even
different
it's different.
because we
Yeah, but
all
kind of my initial
infuse our work with something that's unique to us, right? So it's even if we
yeah,
try, like let's
true.
everybody make you know a fantasy game inspired by this novel. Everybody's gonna make something different. I think no game is gonna be the same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's true, and that was the case, thankfully, because I was a little bit scared. I don't know, it's going to be too similar, but as you said, it's we are so different people.
yeah,
All of us, we have different experience and different kind of way of thinking about it. So yeah, so
I,
it's not similar, but kind of the theme of going into dark woods, it is very much this the same.
yeah. Because your experience with all the baggage you had before and their baggage, it's different. The way like you grew up, so you perceive it different too. It's a different movie for each person in a way. Do you, Pavel?
True.
Do you Can you identify any particular place or source of inspiration for your art? Like, do you see that you lean more on some kind of or some era? I know myself. I always say here that I draw a lot from the media that I consumed when I was a kid, like cartoons, comics, and movies. Late '80s and early '90s, because that was my refuge in my childhood. But can you identify anything, any particular place or era or subsets of culture that you see yourself drawing a lot from?
No, so it's a mixture of so many different things, and I know that Łukasz Kowalczuk, who was on your podcast a few weeks ago, he's very much 80s,
Yeah, yeah,
and it has such a great influence over him. But I'm the complete opposite. I would take things from different media. I could watch a drama and then read a silly science fiction 50s comic book, and then I could listen to, I don't know, whatever kind of acid jazz, and it could add up to something.
Yeah.
So it's so many different things, especially like I think I've missed a lot of kind of cultural phenomena when I was a kid. So there was other things that kind of influenced me then, but I don't see such influence kind of passing over to now. Like, I loved anime, for example, um, but I don't really see very much influence from kind of shonen animes or mangas on over my work. I don't know. I always loved fantasy, and I think I've read probably only exclusively fantasy books for years. So it's like, I know, 300 books in a row, all fantasy.
Wow.
And obviously I still do a lot of that, but I don't think I ever made anything that would be kind of that kind of typical high fantasy setting. Like I do have, I don't know if you see it, it's right there. It's the first page of a comic book that was never made, but it was the closest thing I've ever written to a high fantasy setting, I think. And maybe I will get back to this one because it's quite nice. Um, uh, but yeah, but yeah, so it's really like all the things that really excited me. I think I partially maybe wanted to do something else. It's kind of to escape those influences, kind of consciously or maybe unconsciously. I don't know. But now you've asked me, now kind of this seems weird, right? Like so many people do things that they feel they love, they kind of grew up with, and
Oh, I
I
think I
kind
think
of try to
that's
maybe escape them, which
that's a different way to approach it. I mean, I do use a lot of that I'm experiencing now, and has impacts on me, and then, like, almost as like seasoning to the cooking I do with the raw materials that I draw from my childhood. But there is still like very nowadays things like stoicism and how I want to make a game about that, and I for sure didn't know about that when I was when I was a
yeah.
child, but. Uh, I think it's just a different way to approach it. But I am curious. Like, do you see anything from your childhood that influences the way you approach your art in any way? Maybe how you played, or any kind of experience, or this way of seeing
Hmm.
things differently, or no?
Okay. Oh, sorry, I've lost you for a second. Hello, hello, hello. I do hope it's not on my side, and I hope you can still hear me, but I cannot hear you.
Hey, I think my
Oh,
connection is
can you hear me now?
yeah. I think my connection's a little bit uh, messed up, and
Oh, no worries. Do you want to kind of take some time to kind of lean into it, fix it, or
Let me just see if in the
can you?
living room if the modem is now connected.
Okay.
Uh,
Yep.
Let me just note the time here for me to edit the podcast later, but I'll be right back.
Sure.
Yeah, well, the modem is offline, but I can use the cell phone, but then I won't be able to use a
Oh,
camera. So which
okay.
I think we
That's
should be
okay.
good.
If
Yep.
if that works for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So the last thing I've heard was you asking about if there's anything in my kind of childhood that would kind of influence or inspire me. And Um, Honestly, I don't know if there was something that would kind of shape my view on things like, telling story, or probably, I'm sure it was something, but I just don't.
Can't
I don't
pinpoint
know. I feel
now,
like I
right?
don't have access to it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's probably difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, what did you say is the weirdest thing about your work? Like, if you could say, if you have a voice, like kind of style, like what would you say is the weird mark that you leave in the things that you create?
So I think it all kind of a little. Maybe there are two things. One thing, it kind of comes down to what we said a moment ago about kind of different, kind of experiencing different things and kind of drawing from that. So sometimes I think like I'm taking things that are quite unknown to me. Like for example, I would take Morgborg, which, obviously kind of the dark fantasy setting. I know I like, but the whole kind of doom metal thing is probably not my cup of tea. I haven't listened to a lot of doom metal in my life, kind of black metal as well. Um, but kind of taking that and thinking about, how can I change this to be more mine, and obviously adding the whole corporate theme, that was my thing, but also thinking about how I can take different things that maybe are not super familiar, so doing things exactly in a different way than someone who would do what they know. I sometimes like to take something that's new or different or weird for me, and take that apart or kind of learn it, and kind of make it my own. So sometimes I think the things I do might feel like from kind of a perspective of I don't know, objective viewer who would see me doing all the stuff. That person could say, oh, but that, like, you don't know it, like it's not your thing, so why are you doing this? And that's why, because I want to see, I want kind of experience that weirdness, something that kind of struck me, and I want kind of to learn and then reshape it, and do it my way. So that might be weird a little bit, but also in the kind of the game design, I always try to, well, always, usually trying to look for something that would be different. And for example, in the Whispers of the Woods, there's this mechanic where you roll blindly, and I mean blindly, like you close your eyes, you roll the dice, and then you have to guess the result. And the closer you are, the kind of more positive effect you all have. Uh, but why I wanted to make, and sorry, just to add some more context to it, you roll blindly in situations where you face unknown, when you face something weird, when you face something that's from the realm of magic, for example. And there's one kind of class or live professional role, as you will. Um, oh, I've lost you completely. So that's kind of something weird that I would like to add to each of my games, and I will kind of probably tell a little bit more about the whole concept in general. But in Whispers, the blind rolling is basically where you close your eyes, you roll the dice, and you have to guess the result. And you do this only when you kind of face unknown, or you face something that's out of this realm, so it's kind of magical. Um, and it has kind of, the reasoning behind it is just, it's kind of simulating facing the unknown, right? Like you don't know, so it's like you would have your eyes closed, you don't know, you might guess what's behind the veil, but you don't know. um oh, and I've lost you again. So yeah, the idea is to basically make someone feel like their character is facing the unknown, with your eyes closed, like you don't know what's behind the veil. But there is one kind of a life path, or a role or a class, whatever you want to call it, which is a child. And yeah, it's its own class with own unique abilities, and one of the ability is to see behind the veil, because as we all know, children see more. They tend to be closer to what's mystical and weird. It's much easier for them to peek behind the veil. So if you play as a child, you don't roll blindly on magical events, because you can more easily interact with all the magical creatures and elements. And that's something I kind of took from video game design, um, which is called ludonarrative harmony or ludonarrative consonance, which is an opposite to ludonarrative dissonance, a term that was very much abused in video game journalism for years. But what the dissonance, ludonarrative dissonance, is basically kind of separation between the mechanics of the game and how kind of the narrative wants you to place those
Yeah.
mechanics. So for a tabletop game, I think it's the same for a tabletop game. It's kind of the same thing, and the dissonance would be, for example, where your character is a, I don't know, a super skinny villager without any muscles, without any kind of combat experience, but you roll 20, natural 20, so your character picks the sword and kind of, I don't know, slashes the orc, and then you roll d10 for the damage, and it's 10, so it kind of chops up the head of orc. And that's dissonance, because like mechanically it kind of allows you to do it, but narratively it doesn't really make any sense. Which also is okay, because you don't have to interpret this this way. If you're a GM, you can tell, sorry, if even if you roll 20, there's no way you can even pick up this sword, and that's okay. Obviously, that's
Yeah.
one thing. But I think what's more important, we shouldn't be really looking um, to kind of, I don't know, fight this dissonance, because it's okay. As I said, we are in charge. We can do whatever we want, so we don't have to create this dissonance, and we just don't even have to care about it. And even if, let's say, yeah, you roll d20 as a villager, maybe just, the kind of adrenaline pumps up, and you pick up the sword. Why not? But what I'm more kind of worried about, and what I want to focus on, is creating this ludonarrative harmony, so that you can have kind of the act of playing and kind of the mechanics behind the play to fit more closely with the narrative. And this kind of idea for blind roll is a way for me to test if it's possible. And kind of the early reactions from the playtesters were very positive, and they loved it. I don't know if this is achieving ludonarrative harmony. Maybe not, but this is me trying. Uh, and I think it doesn't necessarily have to be introduced in every game, but it's something that's kind of close to my heart, and something that I would like to develop further. And as I learn, as I go, as I create more, I would like to do those little experiments, kind of tying up the physical act of playing, the act of role playing, and kind of what the narrative says, into one kind of experience that's kind of tied closely. We'll see. I'll probably fail a lot, but maybe one time I'll make it right. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to expand the frontiers of the hobby. I'm thinking about playing with that a lot. Even in Primal Quest, I went to my kids' school one weekend, and they were doing temporary tattoos with watercolor colored pencils, and I felt that was like a good way maybe to introduce mechanic of body painting, and invoking your your guardian spirit or your ancestors, and or something like this in the game, and introducing something that you can do as a player, like you can get a watercolor pencil and like make a symbol of your spirit ancestor or something, or of your people, or some symbology of the people in the game, and mix those two, like character and player becoming one thing, and in another game exploring exactly having the players as part of the game, like they're playing the game
Yeah.
is in the game in some way. Like this game that I'm thinking about is called Pet Gods and Playthings. So like in every role-playing games, the players will have a character which will be their plaything. Like uh, the idea of the game is like the gods who are controlling the mortals in this fantasy realm. So this have this big city. Your character is your plaything, and you're a player. You're a god, and as you're playing the game, like as a player, like making these decisions, you are the gods that are like the gods sitting at a table and playing with mortals. So it is,
Yeah.
mixing these things is very fascinating to me, and I see a lot of new games doing this, like games with sorcery and rituals, in which the players themselves have to perform some kind of ritual outside of the game, like in a term that I now learned, the magic circle that
Yeah.
forms around this
Exactly.
display.
It's
Yeah,
such a great idea,
yeah,
and such a great idea with the tattoos. It's amazing. I love it. And it really is such an opportunity to introduce some of those elements that doesn't really have to be necessary, but it can enhance the experience.
yeah,
Like, I don't know, whatever. I just thought about, let's call the game Fire Mage, and let's make people write their spells on a piece of paper and then kind of burn it
yeah,
to cast the spell. Or, and kind of in terms of kind of physical activity as a part of the game, but also a part of the narrative, one of my top three favorite tabletop RPGs is Dread. The one with the Yenga or Jenga, I don't know
yeah.
how how you pronounce it in English. It's literally one of the top three my favorite RPGs ever, and it will probably stay this way because
What are the
I
other
don't care
two
about
to
anything.
afterwards? Afterwards, you tell the other two. Okay.
What the order would be? Oh, I
No,
don't
the
know.
other two doesn't
I don't
have an
know.
order. Just like the other two, doesn't
Well,
have to be an order.
the other two, oh gosh, I don't know. Uh, I would, I
Yeah,
would probably say, I would probably say Morgborg, because of the influence, and I could probably find a game that might be better in some part, but it's so influential for me, and
yeah,
without it, I wouldn't make RPGs.
yeah. It's not
I,
about
I
being
wouldn't
better.
be
It's like
here.
the three games that
Yeah,
have the
but
most
in terms
impact.
of favorite,
Yeah.
and I think the other could be, I think it could be Night Witches,
Mm,
uh, because the best session as a GM, but also as a person I ever had was when I've run Night Witches, because I've never at a tabletop I never felt such emotions. And I know a lot of people don't play to feel like deep emotions; they just want to have fun, and I also want to have fun sometimes. But sometimes it's okay to kind of go a little bit deeper, and it's not like it was like super deep. I don't know, um, but I shed a tear, and all the players did too, and it was very special, and that's why kind of I love this game, even though I've played only a few times. But and I feel like there are probably so many, um, so much things in this game that could work better, etc. But yeah, it's kind of the emotional impact of kind of how this game pushed me to run it, and how it pushed kind of players to play it. Um, so yeah, probably that would be my top three. um, because of that kind of emotional link to them, not because I don't know. I think one is better than the other.
yeah, yeah. Of course, and it's hard to choose. Favorite games. It's almost like choosing between children, and because you
Yeah,
like them for
I only have one.
very different reasons, like, and they're very different games. So it's how can you choose? You know,
True.
you can
True.
substitute one for
Exactly.
another. So yeah. Do you?
Exactly. So it's all, yeah, like you would ask me, you probably, you would ask me today what's your favorite game. I would say this.
And yeah,
Next week it could be something else.
exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any other hobbies besides, RPGs? And RPGs are no, now it's not just a hobby; it's like a job. But do you have a hobby? Anything that you do just for yourself? You create just for yourself, and it's not tied to any metrics or anything.
Yeah, so I would love to say video games because it was always my kind of, probably my main hobby. I had many different hobbies over the years, but this one basically with me since I was a little boy. But also it's also kind of work. Like, I think that the last 8 or 9 games I've played, more than half I had to review. So it's a bit different, but I still can have fun. But a hobby that doesn't include any kind of work whatsoever, for me that was painting miniatures. But it's not anymore because I don't really have time, and I don't really have that kind of space in my mind to do it. But it was great because it's very kind of relaxing. And again, I'm a bad painter. I'm kind of bad kind of artist in terms of everything that's kind of handcrafted, but I had fun. It was really nice to slap some paint on those miniatures. uh, but the thing that I'm trying to do as often as I can, but 1 month it's COVID, the other month is something else, so I don't always I'm able to, but I still play basketball, and I'm always trying to at least once a week go, and that's kind of what my body needs. That's what my body loves, and there are very very few things that makes me happy. I would say it's probably like 5 things tops, and this is one of them. So basketball, and probably all the kind of geek stuff to a degree. Like I was obsessed about comics. I've pretty much spent, I know, like 8 years in comics, uh kind of writing comics, reading, I don't know, 200 or 250 titles a year. But now it's like, yeah, I can read a comic, but not so much. It's not what it used to be. I think I get discouraged, and I probably consume too much, and now it's just, I just probably need to wait a few years until I get back to comics. Um, Watching movies and TV series. So I do still count this as a hobby because it's not only kind of something I do for leisure. I am passionate about cinema, and I'm passionate about television as well. So it is kind of a hobby. Although, yeah, still from time to time I would write an essay or an article or a review of of a movie or a TV series as well. Not so often, but still, yeah, I would count this as a hobby. And other than that, actually, I'm trying to play some tabletop games lately, and I don't mean role playing, but kind of normal tabletop games, mainly
What
solo
are
games because I
normal
have no.
tabletop games?
I mean, kind of normal. So not war games, and not role playing games. So
Board games in
things like
general,
board games.
Carcassonne,
Yes,
or
yeah, board games.
what board games
Yeah.
have you
So
been playing?
lately, under Falling Skies, it's a solo game. I have Mage Knight, which can also be played solo. So you can see a trend here because I have no one to play with. So I'm trying to, Wingspan is great, also can be played solo. So yeah, I'm just trying to. It's a new. I would say it's a new hobby. Also, I don't have too much time and
Yeah.
space. Like, for example, Mage Knight is an amazing game, and honestly, I think it's even better solo than with someone else. But it takes, like, for the first session it took me an hour to put the things out of the box.
Wow.
So and then
Yeah.
it took me 2 hours to finish my first playthrough. So now
Long
like I,
setup.
I rarely will have 3 hours to play. So
Yeah.
for example, Under Falling Skies, it's like half an hour. It's great, quick. It's very clever game design. It's fun to play. So
Mm.
stuff like that. Now I'm looking into buying Final Girls. It's also a solo
I heard about it.
board
Yeah.
game. Uh, yeah, and I've heard it's great, and it's there is a Polish edition coming to retail this month, so I want to get this. Uh, and do I have any other hobbies? No, I don't. I don't think
Yeah,
so.
that's quite a bit.
Probably.
Yeah, and then I could ask another bit
Yeah,
about
it's all.
everything, but one thing that you said that kind of stuck with me is that you said that you have very few things that make you happy. Uh,
That's
what
true.
would be them like?
Um,
And what do you think is like very few things that make you happy?
it's definitely my family, my daughter mainly.
Mm,
It would be it's basketball.
yeah.
It's kind of creative process,
Mm-hmm.
like when something clicks.
Yeah.
Um, it's food
Food.
to a certain degree. Food, yeah. Um, and I don't know, not so many. And I think there are probably two reasons. One would be depression
Yeah, of
because
course.
it takes a kind of a lot of it takes fun from a lot of stuff.
But I
But also
mean,
I
this why this ones, you know?
okay,
It's
why? So I know like my family is super important to
yeah,
me. I'm kind of really
for sure.
happy,
Yeah.
and it's so great to kind of see my daughter be passionate about stuff, and kind of makes me so happy because um I can do all those things with her. Like I really didn't get too much chance to do stuff with my parents, for example. They're kind of never
Mm-hmm.
into my hobbies, and honestly I didn't really have so many kind of friends around me that I could do things with. So I think like being able to introduce some stuff to my daughter, kind of to see if she'll like them and kind of be there for her if she wants to do it, or just try different things with her. Like she's very young, she's 4.5, so she doesn't really do a lot of things herself.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of super important for me as a parent, but also it just makes me happy that I can be with her doing all those stuff, maybe not all but some of those stuff. Basketball, it's I think I've when I was young, when I was a teenager, I played basketball. It would probably take me between 10 to 15 hours a week of playing basketball. So it was a huge part of my life, and it's just kind of, I think it's a muscle memory, but also kind of emotional memory. It's just was of such important part of my life, and it always kind of makes me feel good. That for most people, I guess, physical exercise, all the endorphins and whatnot kicks in. But for me, it's always just it's kind of a way of moving and way of doing things that kind of makes me happy. And even if I'm not going to have the greatest game of all time, I still can enjoy it. uh, Food, I guess. I don't really like the word foodie, but I do like to eat different stuff. I like to cook as well, but I like to cook because I like to eat. So that's that. And kind of the creative process and all the kind of things that kind of clicks in your head when you came up with an idea and it makes
Yeah.
sense.
It's
I think
exciting.
that's very
Yeah.
natural. That it is kind of
Yeah.
eureka. Yeah, I have this, so it's
Yeah.
very kind of natural for every human being to be happy about it. Mm.
Especially when you have some
But I
problem like you're creating and you get to a point and like how do I solve this? And as you said, like you go do the
Yeah,
dishes or something that gets your mind off and then bam it comes and you just have to rush back in
yeah.
and put that on
But
paper.
the worst thing is if that's kind of, I don't know, if you wake up in the middle of the night, it's
Right.
3 a.m., and then it clicks. And I just I don't want to take my phone and write notes. I don't want to wake up and go kind of write it down. I just want to go back to sleep.
But
Please,
you
brain,
lose
stop.
it.
Just not now.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
so
wake up because I know if I don't take the notes, I won't remember. I Yeah.
yeah, and I've been there, and I had so many instances in which I was like, yeah, no, I'm just going to go back to sleep. I'll remember in the morning, and I
Yeah.
did not remember
Yeah. It doesn't
anything.
happen. Yeah.
So yeah, I now really have to write it down. But yeah, it's a lot of satisfaction.
Yeah.
But then I think it's also the something that keeps me going and it keeps every creative person going, because a lot of what we do, it's also a struggle. Like, you can have great ideas, but then you have to really kind of make them into
Yeah.
flesh.
Manifest them.
So
Yeah.
uh yeah, so it might be cool to write a page 210, but maybe the 11th page will be difficult to write, but you
Mm-hmm.
have to do it if you
Yeah.
want to go further. Like, laying out this page, or you had a great idea for this layout and it looks beautiful, but the next page you're
Yeah.
empty, you get nothing, but you
Yeah.
have to do it because you have to progress. So I think that kind of very much keeps me going when it's something that, yeah, okay, I know how to do it. And with Corp Borg, I had this. What helped me very much was I was so much out of ideas and I was so tired by doing the layouts. And I knew that I need help. I need help, first of all, to kind of deliver the book on a timely manner, but also I needed help with the creative process behind the layouts, because I was just shooting blanks. And Vincent came, great guy, super great artist, and he's done a few layouts for the corporations, and he's done a lot more. Like, he's done, I think, like 12 spreads in total. But that kind of inspired me so much, and then kind of it gave me all this creative energy, and I was like, yeah, okay, he's done such a great job, and it inspired me. I know what to do next. So, and I would love to do it more, because, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm doing almost
Everything.
everything
Yeah.
myself except art. And it's sometimes it feels, kind of alone, but also it feels difficult because I don't have even anyone to bounce my ideas off of. And I know if I could have a person with me doing the work, it would be so much better for me, for my process, because someone could tell me, oh, this is crap, this is shit, and I would be like, oh, okay, you're right, let's make something different. Or someone could be like, yeah, you're on the right track, let's follow this path, and I would be like, okay. And if I would have a block, maybe someone else could fill in and could kind of restart my engine. So
Yeah.
definitely my plan at some point is to have someone with me, uh,
Do you
uh, kind of in.
do you share your process? Because I mean, I connect to that a lot, because when I started, and until actually a couple of years back, I always felt like an outsider, alone, and I was seeing all these people doing that I admired and that I followed, doing like collaborations, and I always, as you said, like do the illustrations, the layouts, the writing, like everything. And but I think as I started sharing the process, and people started sharing their opinions too. So, like, people started caring about the process, and making those connections. I think you'll get that partnerships with time. I think, people start connecting to your work more personally, and those people will eventually, start bouncing ideas, or I don't know, if
Yeah,
you're open
so
to it in some way,
yeah,
right?
but I do have people around me, but it's not the same, because, for example, I work with Ian Servas, an editor. It's a great guy, and so good to have him on my side with basically every project I do. He's such a help, and he always, very honest about his feedback. He's got years of experience in it, so it's great. I have all the artists I'd work with, and they are great creatives. I do have my Discord community, which are like 200 people, but I think there are
Yeah.
like 20, 30 very active, and they will always give me honest feedback. They've been kind of a tremendous help
Yeah.
in the process of Corp Borg development, but it's not the same. Like, I think I would need someone, like a someone to work with on a daily basis.
Oh, I see.
uh
Yeah.
would need kind of a partner,
Partner in
um
crime, I
to
know. Yeah.
do things exactly. So the only person that kind of a little bit is like that but can't be is my wife, but she cannot be because she's not doing she doesn't know anything about tabletop RPGs. And but she's kind of person that I would love to have on my side to work with me on every project, because she's very critical, she's very honest, but she always kind of pushes me to do better. And I listen to her. And I know that sometimes with, when you, I don't know, when you commission art, sometimes people are like, okay, I will do what you want, and I'm probably not gonna comment, I will add something from myself. But sometimes I need someone to challenge me. I need someone to tell me, no, this is crap, this is not going to work, you can do better. But sometimes, people don't know me, they don't know if I can do better. Sometimes I don't even know myself. So having like a true partner who would do, I don't know, if I would have a company and I could hire anyone. I would hire someone to do marketing, I would hire someone to do sales and finance,
Oh,
and I would
yeah.
hire someone to be like my counterpart, like someone who could do everything I can, maybe
Hmm.
even better. That would be great. But someone who can really kind of challenge me. That could be, I could call that person even an assistant and just say like things to that person. Okay, I want to do this, and that. But it wouldn't be kind of an assistant who goes like, okay, I will write it down. It would be someone like a partner, like true partner, who would say like yes, yes, no, and let's have a discussion, let's talk about it, what we can do better.
Yeah.
um because I was in a place, I think, creatively, when I was doing like comics, when I felt like I can do it myself, like I don't need help. And obviously if I would get an, editor would come back to me and say, oh, change this and that, I would be like, okay. uh but I was probably overconfident, and and to be honest, like, most of my comics are kind of average. I've never written something that would be groundbreaking, and I think that's because uh, I didn't take that extra step to get someone to be my critic. Uh, to the point in which I can do better, I can learn, and I can kind of see my mistakes. Now I want to do it. So that's, and I have a lot of fail safes, because I have an editor for each my game of my games. I have Discord community, I have playtesters. So there are many different ways for me to make sure that I'm on the right track and I'm doing something good, and the game is okay, it plays well, it's written well, etc. um, but yeah, at the end of the day, it would be great to have someone on my side who's passionate, and who maybe is different from me, who's got different ideas, who's different personality, different experience,
Yeah.
so we can clash and we can together make something. Because I feel like, yeah, that person could change a lot. And I also like to, like, what probably one of my favorite experience making comic books was not writing but editing. I was a chief editor for an anthology, and I kind of gathered the best Polish writers and artists of the young generation. We made this great anthology that basically all the money we raised was then went to charity. Uh, but it was so fun to be, and so kind of so great to be able to edit someone else's work, to see kind of great stories through their lens. But then, as a creative person myself, I was able to, like, okay, let's maybe challenge this, see like how can you do better, because I'm not here to make it better for you, but I'm here to help you to make it better. And that's what I would love for myself, like someone like that maybe. uh but yeah, no, I think it's just kind of sounds like I'm like a self-pity, but but no, it's just probably it will happen at some point. I think many people started just alone and they kind of built from that, and I think I'll do the same. So yeah, like that's my plan, to have people
Yeah,
on board, making stuff with me, because I want to grow.
yeah.
um
I've seen
but yeah.
people, seeking to form like a small group of creators. Uh, I mean, we have like a small group of Brazilian creators that we talk and we pump up. We hype each other work, and it works great. We're much more active a few months ago, and we're kind of in silent right now. End of the year stuff. It's kind of busy, but sometimes I don't know. We seek like-minded people, and maybe even ask them. Uh, maybe that works. I don't know. It's something to seek,
Yeah,
and I
so
think it's can be very constructive, as you said. I think it can be helpful in you kind of a safe space, to try out ideas and someone you trust. I think it can be
true.
very, 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 very helpful. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think, in the kind of Morgborg community, kind of the third party creators, we do
yeah,
have that. And there are a few people I very much admire, and I always count on their opinion, and we always kind of share with each other our stuff. We kind of playtest our stuff, we share kind of the layouts,
yeah,
criticize our work, etc. And it helps immensely.
yeah.
uh,
I
but then
know.
again, that's kind of,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe find. I don't know if you connect someone, maybe ask them, and but yeah, it is hard. I'm always thinking. I thought about that myself, like asking a few people, but it's always self conscious and self doubt. When I'm asking them, it is weird,
Yeah,
right? So, but yeah, I get it.
true. And also, I think, it's one thing that we can do things globally, so we can
Yeah,
gather people from all around the world and work on something together, which is amazing. But on the other side, I'm a huge fan of working from home thing, and I always was, and I will be. But to be honest, I kind of miss being in the office with other people, where we can just, if I have a problem or an idea, I will just, turn
yeah,
over and I will say it and it's done. uh but now it's like it takes time, etc. So it's different when it's in person. And here in Poland, you know there is a kind of pretty strong community, like especially publishers and players, and kind of the community is quite strong, but there are not so many creators who are doing things in English, with the intent of making it kind of full time, I think. Because it's risky, because it's crazy, because it's but yep, I've done it. I still live. Ask me in a year time if it was worth it. Hopefully it will be. But yeah, there's just not so many people. And I guess, even though I make stuff in English, and I for the last 8 years I've been working in English almost exclusively, be it in corporation or now with the RPGs. But sometimes it's good to just speak with someone in your native language about about kind of creative
yeah.
stuff as well. Um, so yeah,
And
but maybe one day I will have a small office and a few employees or partners
I hope
somewhere in
so. Yeah,
Krakow, in a cozy little office. And we'll be there. We'll gather only once a week, because yeah, work from home, but once a week. Let's meet up.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a plan. That's, I want to say that's a dream, but no, it's not a dream. It's a plan. It's kind of a business plan for me
That's a
as
great
well,
plan.
because
I hope you get there, and
yeah,
it sounds like a dream. And now I'd like to
Thank
ask
you.
you, more about personal questions, about experiences, and I want to even try out a new question that I'm trying to ask. Like, uh, what would you say would be like the weirdest experience you ever had that made you have some sense of other reality is not as it seems in some way, and if you could share that with us, if you're not like can remember the weirdest one, something recent that made you uh see things in a different way.
Oh, I do remember those things, and I can give you many examples, and some of the examples probably I could give you, but I'm it's more kind of a children imagination or dream, so that probably does not apply. There is one event that to this day I cannot explain, and I will never be able to explain. Um, and I hope I will find the right words to describe it. But at my parents' house, it's a big house with a garage, and a front yard and a backyard. It was winter, so there was snow everywhere. Not like heavy snow, but I would guess like a few centimeters of snow. And I woke up. I went outside, and I see trails. Trails like it's difficult to describe even, but uh, like um, like a line, but like a dotted line.
Hmm.
So it would be like a kind of a line, a break, a line, and it was in a shape of kind of like a path in the snow. So it couldn't be, I don't know, a snake or anything, especially in winter, because it wasn't a kind of even. It was kind of a line break. It couldn't be any kind of animal, because an animal would leave kind of normal trails, like that there would be, I don't know, feet or whatever, paws or I don't know. And it came from the sewers and through the garage and to the other side and on top of a fence, of kind of neighbor's fence.
Hmm.
I have no fucking idea what caused those trails, why it was kind of between the sewage and kind of the neighbor's house. What the fuck happened? I don't know. I will never know. And
Do you
it's
have
not like I
theories?
imagine it, because other sorry.
Do you have theories about what that might be?
I absolutely not, like,
Okay.
and kind of, and if I would be the only person at home that day, I would be like, yeah, just I don't know, whatever, let's take me to the doctor. There's other people, there's my brother and my parents, and they've seen it as well, but they're like, yeah, shake it out, like whatever. But to this day I wonder what the hell happened,
Yeah.
because it was like it couldn't be a hose or anything else dragged, because then again it would be a kind of linear, even line. So it was like, I don't know, like a someone on a on a bicycle on one kind of tire jumping. I don't I don't know, I can't even describe it. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
weird, and I got all excited because I just remember about it, and it's still, I don't know. I don't
Wow.
know. There were all the kind of weird happenings, but again, when I was a child,
They'll
so
know.
it's kind
Yeah.
of 99% sure that I haven't seen an UFO, and it was only a dream. And I'm pretty sure that I haven't spoken to Hansel and Gretel about the alien in the woods. I'm pretty sure that didn't happen, although I remember it happening. So,
How was
so
it?
yeah, I had
UFO
really.
in the woods.
Oh, the UFO was over my grandmother's house, and I was scared shitless, and I wouldn't sleep for the next 2 nights. And but the kind of Hansel and Gretel coming out of the woods and saying to me that there's an alien, like Alien from the movie Alien, in
Wow.
the woods. That was also very spooky, and that kind of happened during a wedding. So again, so it's very difficult because probably it wasn't a dream. So it was like kind of just children imagination playing tricks and something that I kind of remembered but didn't happen. But one thing that didn't happen but kind of happened was that one time in my life I had this oh, how it's called, when you wake up but you don't wake up,
It's night terrors
a
or
dream, sleep
sleep paralysis.
paralysis.
Yes.
Yes. So um I remember I had a dream about a mage's tower or something, and I woke up from this dream, and I was laying on a bed, and I couldn't move. I couldn't move my eyes, I couldn't move my head, my hands, and I wasn't really able to breathe. Like I wasn't able to consciously breathe.
No.
And I've heard the TV from the other room, so I knew someone was there. So I wanted to scream for help because I wasn't able to move, or like I was conscious and awake, but I couldn't move.
You
But
couldn't.
that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that, as it happens with sleep paralysis, sometimes you get hallucinations. And I also had one when I've seen like a spider-like creature crawling from the ceiling and onto the, kind of disappearing from my field of sight onto the wall, and it was and I couldn't breathe, so it was nightmarish. It was one of the worst things that happened to me. I was so scared, and when I finally kind of regained control, I wanted to shout, I wanted to kind of scream, but then still I couldn't. It was like more like a muffled ah. Whoa, that was horrible, and I hope people will never get one because it
Yeah.
was, yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty intense.
I had one as a kid
Uh,
too when I felt something like pulling me out of bed and I was trying to scream,
oh,
something suffocating me, and yeah.
oh gosh, it's the worst. But what? And the last thing that happened to me a couple of times. I always had a lot of nightmares. I don't know. I don't have any research, so I can only say maybe. I do have more nightmares than the average person would have. Had a lot of, like, probably most of my dreams were nightmares.
Wow.
Now I don't really remember my dreams too much. But I had a few in which I had a nightmare, and I woke up in this nightmare, but it was still a dream. And then I woke up again. I was like, "Oh my god! I had a dream within a dream." Like, whoa, that was intense. And then kind of doors open, and something comes, like a shadow comes, and I wake up again. I'm like, "Oh my god! I had three dreams in a row. Like, this is crazy." And my kind of heart's racing, and the doors opens and a shadow comes in kind of into my
It's
room, and then I
wow.
wake up again in a dream, and it could kind of loop itself like 7 8 times. So when I kind of really woke up, I was so tired, like mentally exhausted.
Yeah.
And it happened to me a couple of times. So yeah, it's I don't know if it's weird, but it's kind of the closest thing to that I can recall to kind of a weird event.
Yeah, that's scary too, and I don't know. I don't have dreams a lot. You mentioned don't have dreams now. I joke about this because I daydream so much that when I get to sleep, it's already gone. I use it everything up. But my kid has a lot of nightmares, and and sometimes he doesn't wake up okay because of the nightmares. And you mentioned like wake up in tired, and maybe people that remember their dreams and have these stressful dreams, yeah, sleeping not might not be that
uh,
invigorating.
could be. And I actually I think I haven't I haven't got no, maybe, sorry. The last time I had a good sleep was a few months ago, but for the last 12 13 years basically each night for me means that I will wake up tired. And obviously I came to realize that it's depression. So I had my kind of explanation for it.
No.
But still even on kind of medicine and stuff like that, I still wake up tired, everything hurts.
No.
And I went to a lot of doctors. So I took care of my sleep hygiene. I took care of kind of comfortable mattress and a pillow and different pillows, different positions, kind of eating, not eating, drinking water, different stuff. But it's not working. I always wake up tired. And sometimes, yeah, some people are like, night owls or early birds. I'm neither. I'm kind of permanently exhausted pigeon, because I can't stay up late and I can't wake up in the morning refreshed. So yeah, I'm doomed.
I love the permanent exhausted pigeon as a contrast, early bird and a night owl. It's
Yeah.
it's a great term, and yeah, it is hard. Uh, Pavel, have you ever had any experience with altered states of awareness, being either through meditation, hypnosis, dreams, or even use of psychedelics? And if you did any of those experiences had any impact on the way you experience the world?
Uh, no, I did not. Um, I kind of tried meditation and kind of mindfulness, maybe to get into that kind of, maybe not even get into a specific state, but just to kind of quiet my kind of the whole system. But it's difficult. It's difficult for me to meditate, difficult for me to concentrate, and I never had any kind of different altered state of mind, and never took any kind of conscious altering drugs or anything like that. So I have absolutely no experience that I can share with that.
Do you still try to meditate, or did you try that and stop it?
No, tried and stopped. I think now what I'm trying to do is to be a bit more mindful about kind of some elements in my routine, just to silence my body a little bit. I'm not great at it. It is very difficult for me to concentrate or anything. Sorry, on anything. So even in that kind of meditation is the same thing. So no meditation for me, unfortunately. Maybe maybe if someone could kind of teach me, that would be easier. But yeah, it's probably
Yeah,
probably not my cup of tea.
yeah. Do you do anything, to try to regain that focus that you said you have a difficult time to achieve? Do you do any kind of exercise or practice?
So I kind of learned to listen to my body a little bit better. So when I need to rest, I just rest. It doesn't matter if it's, I don't know, 11 a.m. and I should be working. If I don't feel well, I'm just going to lay down and just gonna watch a TV show, because maybe that's what my body needs when I kind of I'm super tired, but I think, yeah, I should do something else. No, maybe it's time to take a step back and kind of take
Hmm.
better care of myself. So that's kind of being more
Self
aware
care,
of
yeah,
of what, yeah, just doing more self-care, but also being aware of my what my body trying to tell me. That helps me to regain that focus, as well. And and sometimes it's not always possible. Sometimes I just have to grind, but then I'll try to take maybe a few days off or something, because I don't have any boss over me who would force me to
yeah,
9 to 5, etc. So I can control my kind of schedule a little bit better and be kind of better to myself. and I'm trying to do that, but that's something I've been learning for a few months only now. So I feel like I'm getting better at it, but it's still a process, and it's still a long way for me to fight it, because um, I do have some unhealthy kind of schematics and unhealthy kind of ways of doing stuff.
What do you mean by
But
that?
I'm working on it. So I'm currently doing psychotherapy, and I'm kind of focusing on my on some kind of patterns in my behavior that, for example, leads me to being kind of the states of, I know, um, being tired, etc. Because it's to a degree, yeah, like depression could, because I have atypical depression, which kind of more leans into kind of physical kind of exhaustion, it's stuff like that. But it can only mean so much, it can only explain so much, but there's so much, and also the way kind of I've learned to do things and kind of perceive things, about kind of myself, about how I behave, etc. That's not super healthy, and that's something I'm working on, and it has a lot to do with work, with actually like um, doing stuff like working. I'm very much, for example,
Is there anything to do
focus on
about
doing
seeing your value through work, that you have to always be working or something like this, or
uh,
no?
a, a little bit, but it's also about making things perfect. And if it's not
Mm-hmm.
perfect, I and it's not perfectionism as you would see it. It's more of a like all or nothing. It's like
Mm-hmm.
if I cannot get this to be the way I want, I might quit, or I might sabotage myself.
I
Or
see.
if it's, and it when it comes to rest, like if I perceive that the rest I have planned for myself is not valuable enough, I'll just wander around doing nothing, and I'll just get tired. And it's it's super difficult, because it's something that uh, that kind of I was taught, not kind of specifically, not kind of consciously learned, or is not like that, I don't know, my parents or whoever taught me to do this, but it's kind of the pattern that happened throughout my life that kind of led me to behaviors like that. But yeah, I'm so happy that I can now work on those issues, and to be better for myself,
Mm-hmm.
to myself, and to learn how to rest, for example, because
Yeah.
it's very much new to me. Like
Yeah.
I didn't know how to rest, like how to regenerate,
How to take better care of
and
yourself, right? It's something
stuff. Yeah,
that I'm also learning, and it's something that's so important for us to learn, so we can, teach our children, right? Because we nobody taught us
exactly.
this. Is we had to figure it
Yeah,
out.
that's true. And yeah, and obviously, kind of the whole culture of work, 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 that was pretty much present for the baby boomers. So uh, I guess it's kind of had a lot of influence over our generation, and probably the next
Yeah,
generations as well, to a degree. Um, but yeah, but I think it's great that we can now consciously take this effort and work to be able to kind of counter that, to be able to take care of ourselves, because we are important. And this is super, like I think, I don't have 20 years of experience, and kind of in tabletop game design. I'm not like a guru or whatever, but if someone would ask me about one advice that I could give to them about their work or about anything else, I would say, just, you matter, like you are valuable, and you should take care of yourself, because you
yeah,
should be kind of the most important person for yourself. Because if you feel good, you will be good to others. If you feel good, you will
exactly.
do good work. If you take care of yourself, like you will be a better person, a better parent, a better
Yeah,
creative person, like better whatever, like So I think that's that. Just take care of yourself, and yeah, just focus on yourself. It's not selfish. It's not selfish to like to accept ourselves. It's not selfish to love ourselves. It's not selfish to focus on our needs,
It's essential, I would say.
because
It's essential
it
because
is.
I think only through truly loving, accepting ourselves, we can truly love and accept others. Uh, I, I I think
Yeah,
very dearly that it's not, people say, oh, people are homophobic because they're like truly they are homosexual. It's not about that, but it's I think people have a hard time accepting the others because they have a hard time accepting something about themselves, or the people that they grew up with. You know, it's hard for
yeah.
them
It's
to,
also
yeah,
to accept the change, I think, because that's the worst thing, that everything's changing, and we need to take care of ourselves to be able to face all those changes.
yeah,
Because for people who are homophobic, they're pretty much homophobic because they don't know. It's actually maybe from the other way around. There's a ton of research that supports the claim that once you get to know more
yeah,
gay people, for example, you become less
yes,
homophobic,
yes.
because then like
They very
why
very limited
why
view
I
of
was
reality.
hating
Yeah,
those. Exactly. Then you see, like, those are normal people. They're absolutely like yourself.
yeah,
It's not like their sexuality doesn't absolutely change anything. But if you don't know those people, if you kind of never seen,
yeah,
like for example, my grandmother, she was raised in a village that's kind of
yeah.
100 people
Unlimited reality.
max,
They can't
and
see
and
beyond their
she was.
worlds. Yeah,
Yeah, and kind of my grandmother, I know she traveled when she was, I don't know, 40 or whatever, to a city, and she saw a black man, and she was a little bit scared because she never even saw a black person on TV,
wow.
because it was they didn't get a TV. It was like 50 years ago or whatever, in a small village in post-war
Yeah.
post-war Poland.
And that's why
So
two big
so that's
cities are more cosmopolitan, are more diverse, people are more accepting because
yeah,
they see every day how this other person just like me, this person that is completely different could very well, you know, it is me. Like it is, if I were them, I
exactly.
would be them. It's exactly that. But people have a very limited sense of reality. They think, no, my life is
Yeah.
is is the reality. So everything else is reference to that, and it's a dangerous way to see
Yeah,
the
and you
world.
know what? And I think we can make a great parallel to the weirdness, because when you face something unknown, and like, you see someone who's different from yourself, for any reason, then it's your choice. Do you want to kind of stay this way? You want to kind of close yourself? You want to hate this person, or you want to understand this person? You want to kind
Yeah,
of go through with it and kind of ask the question, what it is that I don't know about this person that could help me understand it better, like it's sorry understand this person better. And same, I think, for creative process, when you see something weird and you want to kind of pursue it. And that's why I think in creative communities people are more open, because generally they tend to be more open about kind of pursuing the answers to those questions and questioning themselves and trying to uncover what's there. You just want to kind of understand things,
yeah,
and kind of that, I think, can help us um, to see people who they really are, just other people. And that's what kind of stopping, like, not doing that, but kind of being closed and being in their own comfort zones, kind of leads to all that hate, because they just don't want to understand anything. They think they know
yeah,
everything, and kind of they feel safe in their bubble.
yeah. That's
uh,
fear. That's the
but
phobia thing,
yeah,
like the
but they are.
fear of the different,
Exactly.
of
Yeah,
being
but
wrong.
also I think. Exactly, but I think it's also there is something in their life that kind of makes them anxious and makes them feel
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
if someone's homophobic, it's the kind of the real problem for those people are not gays, right? The real problem is that they have something happening in their life that kind of pushes them to hate
Yeah,
others. And I
something
absolutely
missing.
don't want
Yeah,
to justify homophobes, because
of
I
course
will
not.
never do
Yeah,
that. I think those people should definitely get
seek
what they
help.
deserve in terms of, if they hate, yeah,
Um,
seek help. But exactly, there is a potential to kind of to help those people, and there's potential for them to be better.
yeah,
It's not like they were born homophobes or transphobes, and then they will still stay that way. And I hope one day we'll see
yeah,
everyone to kind of adopt those kind of thinking, that that they shouldn't hate, they should understand. um
yeah,
and yeah,
yeah. I get it. For example, my father is homophobic. I was raised in it, and today, like, we get in these debates, and it's sometimes gets kind of bad. But I I was raised by one, and I had wrong thoughts about it. And but as you learn and you meet more people, and you grow, and you that's it. Like, you get to know different realities, and that's really connects to game design too, because when you make a game, you're like making small models of reality. And you said that artists have a easier time to get this. Is I think that's because we like to explore seeing things in different ways, and that's how we see different realities. And that's how, for us, I think it's so important to connect and understanding other people, because that's also helps us understanding the world and being able to express our own visions in different ways. And we know that at the
exactly.
same time they will interpret the thing that we do in a different way, and that's completely valid also.
Yeah, and I think, it's super important to be very conscious about it. Like, for example, with Whispers of the Woods. So it's set in the 18th century, kind of Germany, Polandish kind of territories. And kind of my initial thought was, yeah, probably, like, when I envisioned the village, like, they're all so typical, like, all white and all straight. And I was like, why the hell I'm thinking that? Like, why? Like, I was like, that's kind of the way the maybe pop culture wants me to think, and kind of the history books
Hmm.
always presents all those people like they have no sexuality or whatnot. And I felt like, okay, I as a white straight guy, as obviously my perception is very much skewed. So that's why I put an advert for a sensitivity consultant for Whispers of the Woods, especially someone from kind of with the trans community and kind of trans experience background, to help me, because I want to make this game diverse and accessible. I want people to create characters that can express their identity and in different ways, but I need someone to guide me through it, to help me understand it better, to use the better wording, like a better language. So yeah, but I had to be conscious about it. I had to think, okay, I have this kind of weird stereotype, and I need to fight it, and I need to find
Yeah,
someone who will guide me through it, so I can make this game inclusive. And it was pretty important for me. And I'm so happy that we have such a welcoming and an experienced community of people, that I just found so many people who are great for this, and it will be so difficult to pick one. uh, but yeah, it's great that we can take that effort to be more kind of conscious about the games we make and how people will interact with it. And kind of the more open we try to be, I think it's better, because it will allow people to have, not always better, it's not about better experience, but more diverse
yeah,
experience, right?
unique
We
experiences. Yeah.
yeah, unique. And obviously there is no such game that would work for everyone.
Hmm.
It's even, I think it's dumb to think that you can make a game that will be universal. But then again, the more experience we have, the more question we ask, the better we can make the game to suit different play styles, different types of thinking, etc. So, and I think that's partially why I like to take things that I don't know and don't fully understand and kind of remake them, uh, because then I learn about those things and I can kind of expand my creativity, but also I think I can just expand as a person as well.
Yeah. Pavel, do you have any kind of religion or spirituality or even any kind of philosophy that you aspire to that helps you guide you through life and in difficult situations?
No, I don't. As I've mentioned, I'm kind of pretty much a radical in terms of kind of behavioral science, which is kind of philosophy as well. But I don't kind of practice this philosophy because if I would have to make a very difficult choice. I'm not going to go into much details because it would be kind of an hour about explaining what I
Another
really mean.
podcast.
But yeah, I don't. I think I only have one thing that I always kind of try to think about is that just don't do harm to myself and to others, and that's it. And that's kind of my kind of morality. And I don't have any religion or kind of any other system that would help me. Although I was raised in Catholic family, and kind of the most of the family is, but me and my wife and kind of my daughter are not, uh, which created some tension. But I think we are past it, and we are not like super angry and like, if we go for a wedding, yeah, we'll go into the church. We're not gonna burn. And I've lost you.
Do you remember the last time you felt really happy and grateful for being here? And if you do, would you like to share with us a little bit?
Yeah, a good
I know
question.
that's a hard one
I've,
for you know.
yeah, I think all kind of there are a lot of those small moments with my daughter when I think exactly that, and we actually even made this uh, make this jar when we can say what we are thankful or grateful for, and just put it in a jar, and we are going to open this jar in a year or in a few months and read it. And we yeah, me and my daughter and my wife sometimes just write something down. But it comes down to all those small moments when I'm kind of seeing that my daughter is happy. I'm grateful for that. I'm seeing that you know I can be with my wife, and I'm grateful for that. Like all the small things. And I think I'm super privileged, and I've been privileged in life as well. Like it's just nothing that I'm lacking. And even though this month I am financially struggling because I have like no income, almost, but still we have savings, we have a roof over our head. My parents have supported me immensely throughout my life, and so yeah, kind of they invested so much money, that I can really be like that. That's why I can kind of consider myself privileged, because I know a lot of people have to work very, very hard, uh, to kind of to support themselves, and my parents did a lot of that for me. So that's exactly, again, something that sometimes if I think about it, I am grateful for. But I guess to pinpoint exact situation, I think last time was actually during therapy, when my therapist kind of made a whole plan, and just kind of we talked through the plan. And I thought, okay, like this, like I can get help, and I can get better. And it was super, and it was something that I really kind of, it was the last 2 minutes of the session, so I kind of, I just shrugged it off, and went outside. But I just wanted to cry so badly, because like I felt like I have a chance to feel better finally,
Hopeless.
after all
Yeah.
those years of not feeling too well in some ways, not because not that I've been miserable for 10 years. It wasn't that bad, but obviously some kind of parts of my life were kind of influenced. So that was kind of that struck me, and
Yeah.
it was pretty important. But then again, it also comes down to the thing that I can pay for therapy, and I know a lot of people can't, and they cannot get the help they would need. They cannot even get the meds, and I'm not talking about kind of psychiatric drugs, but other medicine as well,
Yeah.
and and it's horrible. So so that's that. I think uh, I'm really in a comfortable place where I can do what I love. It's absolutely amazing that for most of my life I thought that it would be impossible to do what I love. That I was kind of forced into doing whatever I need to do to make money to support my family and to just move on, and that I will have some small hobbies to do on the weekends, and that will be it. Apologies, but yeah, after kind of 7 years of soul sucking corporate jobs, uh, I knew that I can't do this anymore, and now I'm doing this, and I'm happy. I'm kind of honestly
Yeah.
happy, and I'm honestly grateful that I can do it. Um,
That's great.
so
I'm happy for you. Yeah.
thank
So
you. And even though I'm struggling from time to time, it's sometimes it's very hard. I'm not,
it
I
is. Yeah.
wouldn't take it any other way. And I think I will do everything to endure and to grow and to make it work. Because I think I owe it to myself. I think I owe it to the child that wanted to tell stories and who was super passionate about all that. Kind of owe it to that person, to that kid, to kind of to make that dream reality, but also to show that it doesn't have to be a dream, that like we can do what we love, and we don't always have to to compromise. Sometimes it's okay to take a risk. Maybe in a year's time I'll be back at some dead end job because tabletop RPGs it won't work out for some reason. I don't know. But I would never regret taking that chance
Yeah. It's
and
worth
risking it.
exploring anyway. Yeah.
Exactly, because because if it will work, it will make me happy. And as we said, it's super important to take care of ourselves, and this is me taking care of myself, I think. So for that,
Yes.
I am grateful for I'm grateful to myself for kind of allowing myself to do it, to try and to risk
Yeah.
and to do it. So, oh gosh, so I said, ask me one thing when I was, one kind of situation when I was grateful, and I told you so many different stuff, and you see, and it's weird
That's
because
great. That's great
yeah,
because
because
you're like having awareness of this. I think it's
yeah,
a very good exercise. We don't spend enough time
yeah,
internalizing the good things that happen to us, because the bad things we remember immediately, and the good
yeah,
things we have to make this effort. So it's
and
good. Like
when you asked the question, my initial reaction, my brain was like, no, I'm not grateful for anything. Yeah, I'm grateful for my family, but that's it. And then when I started talking, yeah, it seems that there are so many things, and I
yeah,
really hope everyone can like look back closely and see those things they can be grateful for, and I hope
it's an
everyone can
exercise.
get.
Yeah, we have
Yeah,
to practice this,
it
because
is.
if we don't, we won't see. It's very easy to see the bad thing, because it's the first thing you think
Yeah,
about, because it's the thing you have to deal with. So
it's true.
gratitude, it's a habit, I think, and it can really, it has been helping me. I have like a small notebook that I write, not necessarily gratitude, but just good things that happened to me this day, and kind of helps me keep those things in mind, and forget the bad stuff, because otherwise I can obsess over them. So
Yeah, oh, that's a
Pavel,
good idea.
thank you so much for coming here to the podcast and sharing a bit of your story, your experiences. I know we had many, connection problems. My internet today is terrible. It's really shitty, but I'm happy you struggled to it. You pushed it through. I'm very thankful and sorry for all the difficulties. But do you have any last message to give the weirdos out there that might be listening to us?
Oh gosh, the last thing, I think, just pursue the weird and follow it and ask questions and don't be scared, because weird is scary, is unsettling, but there are great things on the other side. So yeah.
Awesome.
Do that.
And can you
follow the weird?
Take us out saying the catchphrase of the show? Keep it weird, everybody.
Yeah, keep it weird, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to Weird Games and Weirder People. If you'd like to keep up with the show, please subscribe to be notified when we release new episodes. If you'd like to support us, please leave a review or head on to code-fi.com/WGNWP. See you next time, and remember, weird is the new wonderful.